Hi everybody, welcome back. Tony again with Shinsho Yoga. And for this week's video, I'd like to talk about a posture called thread the needle, another shoulder opener. Recently I had a video on a posture called puppy pose, which really kind of gets the front of the shoulder here, where thread the needle is going to get more of the back of the shoulders here. This isn't really a posture generally, although you'll find in yoga, in that it's not part of your standard traditional asana postures. This is really something that comes from martial arts. I've mentioned before, I've been a martial artist pretty much my whole life, and of course you have to stretch in the process. And one of the things we often did in our classes was thread the needle. So I adopted this to my yoga practice, and it's always in my classes. There's a couple postures that I'm sure my students are well accustomed to at this time, and that is one of them being puppy pose and another one being thread the needle. So let's get right to it. Thread the needle is a relatively simple and passive posture, but depending on the openness in your shoulder may be challenging. So it's going to depend on the person that it's doing it. So you will start from an all fours position on your mat, hands and knees, tabletop. And you do one side and then to do the other. We're going to start with the right side. So with your breath, with your inhale, you'll take your right arm and you sweep it up to the sky, right? Try to let that body rotate open. Try to let that chest rotate open, similar like you would in triangle. And then with the change in the breath, you're going to sweep the arm down across the body, right? Bringing your cheek and your forearm down here to the mat. And your shoulder comes down and the hips stay high. And we close the eyes and we breathe. Following your inhale and following your exhale. And when you come out of the posture, you'll draw that palm back, press into it to rise up, take the arm to the sky. Again, keep it in the air just to be able to rotate that chest open, and then with the breath, bring it back down. You're going to want to do this, of course, on both sides, right? We just don't want to have the body imbalanced. We want to do it on both sides. So the same thing would go for the opposite side. Take that arm, sweep it to the air, right? Keep that rotation open, really gazing up towards the hand. And then with the change in the breath, you'll sweep it down across the body, right? Taking that cheek and shoulder down. The hips stay high. You close the eyes and you breathe. And once again, coming out of the posture, you draw that palm back to press into it. Rise up, take the arm to the sky, revolve that all open, and then with the breath, bring it back down. That is the entire posture. It's a relatively simple one. It's relatively straightforward, right? How long you want to remain in the posture on each side really is going to depend on your teacher and what they want to have happen in the class. I keep my students in it 2 or 3 minutes on a side. I generally have it in the warm-up section of the class, the beginning of the class, the gentle postures that I like to do before we reach to a more vigorous pace, as a way to be able to open up the shoulders. Now, you can modify this posture to be able to do other things on it, depending on what you want the body to do, right? So one of the things you can do is, generally in the posture, you're keeping the hips high. If you sit back to the heels in the posture, like you would, say, for child's pose, come in, right, sweeping it across, right, we're here, we're in the posture. And then if I sit all the way back to the heels for this, as best you can, you want to keep that shoulder down. It turns into more of a twist. Right? So I feel this more through my back than I do in my shoulder. When you're up into this section here, the pressure is down on the shoulder. It's not a heavy pressure, it's light. And what that's going to do is help open up the back of the shoulder and the front of the shoulder there, right at the head. Right, coming out again. Now, if you want to make this also more of a twisting motion and not want to sit back to the heels, well, same thing as before, right? From our posture, we modify. So one of the things you can do is draw that palm back and rotate the chest open. Some people I know like to bring their hand behind and then really draw this shoulder over. I find that a little difficult to balance with. I have a tendency to kind of want to move forward. So if I'm doing it, I just keep the palm down there and I roll that open. That will take some of the pressure here off your shoulder, so you're not going to feel it so much in the shoulder. You're going to feel it more throughout the back. So it really depends on what you're looking to do in the class. You can do all of it if you want. Sometimes I have my students go through more than one of those at a time. So we'll start from a standard thread the needle, and then I'll have them bring their hand back part of the way through and revolve that chest open. It really acts more like a twist, opening up the center of the back. So you start with the shoulder and then getting more into the center of the back and a little bit into the sacrum. And then if you want at the end, have them sit all the way back to the heels. And then it's really acting like a twist, really getting more into the sacrum back here. So you can start here, move through the back, and then move into there. These minor modifications in the posture all hit different places in the body, along the shoulders and the back, and then into the sacrum. So it depends on what you're looking to do in the class, or as a practitioner, if you're doing this at home, what you're looking to access. But I always recommend the counter pose, right? So when you go into it, just don't throw your arm in, bring that to the air, come back down. That's the counter pose, bringing it up into the air, sweeping it down across, being in that, and then when you come out, bring it back up. I'll often have students hold that for a few breaths. So, thread the needle, not a traditional yoga posture, something more I've brought over from martial arts, but very good for getting the head of the shoulder and the back here. And again, depending on how you modify it, it can also work as a twist going into the back and also working up into the sacrum, depending on how you do it. But as always, just breathe, follow your breath, let your thoughts arise, let them pass by, and return to the breath, over and over. That's all for this week. Thanks again for watching. Namaste.